While the mainstream media refuses to cover Donald Trump's cognitive decline, at this point, he's giving them no choice. He is melting down, falling asleep at events, slurring his words, and he instantly imploded to begin a press conference with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in a way that was hilariously humiliating. We're going to get into it all and cover what were the very shocking moments of this press conference, but I want to start with a line Donald Trump continues to repeat at the G7 that is really troubling me, and it comes right here.
Can you guarantee the talks on U.S.-Russia talks? When will they restart?
They're starting already.
Mr. President, why do recent European push to apply more sanctions on Russia? Do the U.S. support that?
Well, Europe is saying that, but they haven't done it yet. Let's see them do it first.
You told me earlier that you could sanction Russia. Why wait? Why wait to sanction them?
Because I'm waiting to see whether or not a deal is signed.
Can you guarantee the UK won't be subject?
And don't forget, sanctions cost us a lot of money. When I sanction a country, that costs the U.S. a lot of money, a tremendous amount of money. It's not just let's sign a document. You're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Sanctions are not that easy. It's not just a one-way street. No. I just, you know what I say? Saving lives. I only care about saving lives. We have nothing to do with it except that Biden stupidly let us get into that mess and gave them $350 billion. $350 billion. And yet, despite that, you saw how we did in the Middle East. We took in $5.1 trillion. We have $15 trillion almost, looking around that number, going to be invested in the U.S. So the money is not the thing in this case. It's 5,000 young people are being killed every week.
Trump started off the day at the G7 being Putin's puppet, defending Russia to no one's surprise, but it just continues as we saw in that clip. Trump earlier making, of course, the wild claim that if we hadn't removed Russia from the G8, then they never would have invaded Ukraine, even though it was Putin's decision to invade Ukraine in 2014 that led to the removal of Russia. And this idea that Trump won't impose sanctions on Putin, even though he's put tariffs on Ukraine, is insanity. It's costing us money to the tune of billions of dollars. That's why you won't do it. Your tariffs are costing billions of dollars to U.S. taxpayers with the artificial tariff tax that you put on us, but you don't seem to care about that. There is no cohesive message coming out of Trump except for one that is apologetic to Putin. That is the only foreign policy stance he can understand clearly. It's the only foreign policy stance he can understand, because take a listen to what he had to say about Iran right here.
Iran is accusing Netanyahu of attacking them to deliberately derail your nuclear plan. What do you say to that?
Look, Iran should have signed the deal.
If it would help bring Iran to the negotiating table, would you guarantee that the U.S. would not get involved in
Well, I think Iran basically is at the negotiating table. They want to make a deal. And as soon as I leave here, we're going to be doing something. But I have to leave here. I have, this commitment. I have a lot of commitments. I have a commitment to a lot of countries, including the UK, where we just signed our deal.
This is just a very confused elderly man in cognitive decline. And of course, we are going to see one of the more hilarious examples of that in a second. But Donald Trump has been facing it down from all sides. Of course, no one came to his birthday party. No one wanted to do anything on that day except protest him. And now he is seeing MAGA Republicans turn on him because of his rhetoric over Israel. We saw that with Tucker Carlson right here, who then Donald Trump responded to.
They're doing is what they always do, which is just turning up the propaganda hose to full blast and just trying to, knock elderly Fox viewers off their feet and make them submit to a new war.
They've been talking about this deal for 6 years, right?
6 years.
And he's done what they haven't been able to do. So he's done really a very good job.
In response to Tucker Carlson criticizing you, saying that you're
I don't know what Tucker Carlson is saying. Let him go get a television network and say it so that people listen. Thank you.
No one's coming to his birthday. Trump is being protested across the country. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rand Paul, and Tucker Carlson are turning on him. It is bad everywhere Donald Trump looks, including in the mirror, because the man is very clearly in cognitive decline, but it's not just the mental state that is so bad. It's also the physical of it all that's not working. The motor skills aren't A1 with Trump right now, as we can see, because look what happened when he started this press conference.
We all know, the great Prime Minister of the UK, and we just signed a document. This is, sorry about that. This is it.
A very important document.
A little windy out here. Give me that. We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement with the European Union.
Donald Trump's inability to land the deals he claimed would come so quickly have been an embarrassment by themselves, but to tie that in with him opening up to brag about his deal, he's like, take a look at this, and it immediately falls out. Like, that is just such a perfect analogy for what has happened. Donald Trump thought that his tariffs and the deals that were coming would be this big public spectacle, only to immediately blow up in his face and demonstrate how weak and uncoordinated he is as a leader. And when he's bragging about them, he demonstrates how uncoordinated he is as a person in decline. It couldn't be more obvious what is happening in this White House. Donald Trump has lost his mind. He's surrounded himself with yes men and women who will only say, "Dear leader, you are doing so great," reaffirming the belief he has in himself, which does not work because, again, he is out of it. And so Donald Trump is left embarrassing himself time after time after time as MAGA continues to crumble and kind of eat its own. The only time they can ever get their ducks in a row is when they are pushing disgusting lies, as they did with their conspiracy theories about the shooter who has now been apprehended in Minnesota. And I've talked extensively about this, but I think someone who gave a perfect response was our friend and Tim Miller of The Bulwark.
Tim, I would say after 9 years, nothing should surprise any of us. On this, though, I reached out to Esther Salas, who has generously opened up her trauma and grief at having her son murdered at her home because of her job. She's a judge. There was a disgruntled litigant who came looking for her and murdered her son. And she said the rhetoric has to change, and everybody is responsible or can do something about that. What are your thoughts in the wake of this tragic, what was described in the moments after it, a political assassination?
Yeah. Two thoughts. Before I start raging at the Republican response, I do think it'd be appropriate to mention Yvette Hoffman, who's the wife of John Hoffman, who were targets of this. I believe at this point they seem likely to survive. Yvette jumped on her daughter to shield her and protect her and was shot several times by this alleged assassin. And so, you know, a lot of times in these cases, I just think it's important to mention those folks. So we're hearing about the heroes as well as the next group of people I'm going to talk about. But the response on the right to this has just been absolutely deranged. I mean, not random, you know, sometimes you have me on, Nicole, to ask me what they're saying on the random fever swamps of, you know, right-wing blogs. I'm not even talking about those folks. I mean, all the way up to Elon Musk, richest man in the world, former shadow president, 2 United States senators, Mike Lee and Bernie Moreno, and a bunch of other very prominent right-wing media folks are still up until this moment trying to claim that this person is a Marxist. They invented some rationale that I guess one of the victims had voted against something that Tim Walz was pushing through with regards to health care for undocumented immigrants or something. And so they were accusing Tim Walz. Even Mike Lee, a U.S. Senator Mike Lee, was kind of obliquely accusing Tim Walz of this and then directly accusing Marxism of this. I mean, this is like a deep brain rot, and it is infecting all of their followers. It's infecting people all around the country. And at a moment where, as Claire said, you know, we should be trying to bring people together and tamp down the rhetoric, what they're doing is inciting people more. And at a moment where Democratic legislators were targeted and in one case killed by an assassin, these very influential people, elected senators, top advisors to the president, richest man in the world, are all out there trying to say, no, it's actually far left people that are doing this type of violence, and that kind of implying that that is a radicalizing people more towards the victims. So I know it's been really kind of disheartening to watch all of that because it's absolutely, and it's crazy, but it also is, it's dangerous, right? And sometimes there's pressure in media to try to be falsely fair, to try to be objective, to be fair to both sides. And he's like, his tweet about Stephen Miller and his hateful rhetoric was truthful. And I think that the ABC cracking down on him comes in the context of ABC kind of folding around the George Stephanopoulos lawsuit, and other examples of this from the media. And Terry, as you know, reported in Russia and has reported in authoritarian regimes. And I think he was very fair about all of it when we talked. He's not saying we're going to be Russia or we're already Russia, but he's saying he's seeing some concerning hints where people have to be careful about what they say, even if it's the truth, or they might suffer retribution. And so I'm happy he's out there speaking the truth, and he's doing some independent media stuff now, and was happy to talk to him for the pod.
The idea that a sitting U.S. senator would jump to call a tragedy the fault of the Marxist left, not only with no information to suggest he was a Democrat, this alleged shooter, but in fact the opposite, that the assassin was notably a Trump supporter, someone described by his friends and family as such, someone who, voting records show, participated in the Republican primary last year. And yet, we have a U.S. Senator, Mike Lee, who has always been disgusting with his rhetoric, someone who is a creature of the internet, who cares more about owning the libs on Twitter. I've fought with him before, calling him a shameful person, and then he got all upset with me. Oh, what a bad thing to say. That's so hurtful. The left is so hateful. How are you turning this around on us? You are a party that not just endorses, not just excuses, but justifies violence. They continue to justify violence in the means and the ways that they look to strip away humanity of anyone that they see as their opposition, saying that these people are less than. They do not deserve rights. They do not deserve due process. They do not deserve to be treated like people. And in doing so, you encourage violence to be carried out on behalf of your movement, especially when those who support you believe that they can't be held accountable because they either put on a mask to carry out Donald Trump's plans, or they get a pardon when they're successful or unsuccessful in doing so. This is the movement that MAGA built. It is a very scary one, as they refuse to turn down the temperature. And not just that, they refuse to take accountability. Donald Trump still has not called Tim Walz. It is not just that he is the governor of a state that has experienced a tragedy. He himself has lost a friend. And yet Trump doesn't care, because there is no empathy in a movement that laughs at empathy. It is the point to be cruel. So it's our job to call that out. And we don't have to do it in a nice way. We can be aggressive in doing so. I promise I will. I'm not going to apologize for doing so. And if you want to support the work that we're doing that on this channel, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. We got 1 million now, thanks to you. You can leave a like on this video, and if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.